other allies in the UN system, we convene this UN Generative AI practice group. The group, just to provide you a little bit of background, is open to anyone who's interested in generative AI. It's designed for colleagues who are at the beginning of their Gen AI journey and just want to learn about, the application of this new technology, as well as for experts who are developing their own generative AI solutions and would like to exchange with others. We try to just create an understanding of Gen AI, its opportunities and challenges, think about what the applications are in the UN system, develop a knowledge repository, connect colleagues, and most of all, avoid duplication. And like I said, it's catering to all levels of expertise. So we hope everyone has a space in here. In this session today, we'll probably be slightly more in the beginner intermediate space, even though it's suitable for all levels. You can never get good enough at prompt engineering, I assume. A couple of weeks ago, we hosted a session with Microsoft already to discuss the 10 most common use cases. And because there was so much interest, we decided to follow up with a session on prompt engineering, which was voted as the most popular use case by all of you. So we asked our friends from Microsoft to come back, and thankfully they agreed. Very happy to have Tirza van Dam again with us and Martin Schmöller. Tirza is a senior data and AI specialist at Microsoft, and Martin is a technology strategist for international organizations, both, of course, at Microsoft. Before I hand over to them, we would love to get a sense of who's in the room, and we're going to launch 2 quick polls. Please help us understand whether you've used generative AI tools before. Yes or no, simple. And the second question will be on how you would rate your prompt engineering skills. Are you an expert? Are you an absolute novice? Do you not even know what it is? Tell us and help our presenters tailor their presentation. So I don't know if it's only me who can see the results, but they're coming in. Lovely, keep on voting. So far, Tirza and Martin, for your background, we seem to have an intermediate audience. We have no experts here in the room yet, except for the 2 of you. And we have a good amount of beginners. So 37% of colleagues said they are beginners in the space, 46% intermediate, 17% advanced. So thanks for casting your vote. And with that, I'm almost ready to hand over to you. Just a quick note, because it tends to be the most popular question in any webinar we do. The session is live, is recorded, and we're going to be sharing the recording and the slides with you via mail afterwards. And you'll also find them in our Generative AI webinar library. And with that, Tirza and Martin, take us away. Help us become better at prompt engineering.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'm Martin Schmöller, working for Microsoft now for many, many years. And yeah, this is a huge and big topic, of course, and I tried to distill a little bit down to what is really important. But there is no upper end to this topic. It can become as complex as you want. And to start with, I thought, why not ask GPT what is a good prompt? And this is usually what you should always do if you have a question. Go to ChatGPT and ask it. It says here basically, and all the information that you find on the internet is similar to this. Yeah, be clear, be concise, be specific. Don't have open-ended or broad prompts which allow. So it's relatively clear for me. The picture that I have in mind and that helps a lot is you have an intern who is coming to work in your organization over the summer, and you want him or her to do some task. You need to explain it relatively precise. You need to say when, what the goal should be, what the outcome should be, and then the intern would understand. And if you have this picture in mind and talk to GPT in the same way, you will get good answers normally. Not so good is a prompt, something like, give me 5 interview questions. And again, if you have this picture in the mind, the intern would say, yeah, but what for do you want to use those 5 questions? And then you would have to explain. So much better is, as the hiring manager of I just picked one organization here, UNAIDS, the Organization for Fighting AIDS, that is interviewing a donor management lead. Give me 5 open-ended interview questions to ask that will provide open-ended answers. So in this, and this is maybe the thing that you could try to memorize, who are you, the persona? You can also say something then like, as an expert, or as a child, or as a 15-year-old. So who is asking? Describe who is asking, describe the background, and describe so that there is more context around your question, and describe the objective clearly, 5 open-ended questions. And what should those questions enable me to do? Okay, so this is kind of an introduction. I have another one that, as here as an example, as the hiring manager, I need a job description. What is my organization? What is the context? I need somebody who help us install technology, configure it, and then what? It's very specific. Which certifications should this person have? And please include them in the hiring profile. So, yeah, I wanted to also make one point clear. Sometimes people say that this ChatGPT thing only spits out data based on some statistical distribution. This is not really true. It learns differently. It learns by creating relationships between features, all of its own, and then it can reason about things, almost like a human being, and can even answer questions which are not at all, or where we can be very, very sure that they have not been part of the training material. And this is why often relatively silly questions are used here. Can an elephant pull my tundra? It immediately checks, for example, that the tundra is a car and not an area in Russia or in wherever. And so this is the first thing, which is difficult to do if you're just using statistical methods. And then it thinks about this. Okay, it's a silly question, but it thinks about the question and gets some answers to you. So it's more than a stupid statistical machine that gives you the answer. A few hints. Very often telling the model that that it should explain step by step or explain your reasoning helps the model to give you a good answer, and also helps you to understand why it gave this answer. So put this into the prompt, especially if you expect it to spit out a few steps. Then negations is something that the model currently, at least, is not very good at. So don't say, give me 5 examples of questions which I would not ask, and during my meeting. It's hard for the model to understand negations. And math, I'm sure many of you have heard that math problems, it's very strange. Sometimes the model can calculate very complex math problems very well and find answers to it. On the other hand, it does things like the one below. 3 pants need 5 hours to dry in the sun. How long will it take until 6 pants are dry? And then it comes up with something really stupid. It says it will be 10 hours, but of course it would only be 5 hours as well. So be careful with math, cross-check. I wanted to show you a relatively new feature for prompting. The feature, yeah, and I did this just before our session. We have now, so you know copilot.microsoft.com, that's the website you go to. In the case of the web interface, you have now those 4,000 maximum characters. And with the notebook feature, you have 18,000. So that's relatively new. Let me quickly pull up a prompt here, which is long, and show you what you can do with this notebook feature. So basically, this is a long prompt, and you can now let it run and see what the outcome is. And let's just give it a second to start working. The interesting thing now here is that you can edit the prompt somewhere. You can click on return here and add a line and said add these other important skills that the new hire should have, Okay, and then when you're done and have worked on your prompt, that you can change it. You can say, well, okay, we don't need this in the prompt, for example, we delete this, and then you add something again. And when you're done, you simply click on submit, and the new prompt is sent to the language model. So this is a feature that allows you to really refine and work on your prompt, and it allows you as well to have an input of 18,000 characters, which is pretty long already, especially if you compare it to the web or to the work where you have 2,000 and 4,000 characters as a prompt limit. Okay, let me go back. Notebook feature, it should show up also in your browser automatically if you go to copilot.microsoft.com and log in with your organizational ID. Always important, because then the prompts are protected, and Microsoft gives you the guarantee that we don't use the prompts to learn from it and to make somehow use of it. So the green icon is important. Okay. And another thing I wanted to show to you is we have a site, and I would really like to encourage you to go there, which is called adoption.microsoft.com, and this helps all Copilot users to learn about how to use the system. One of the things that, for example, you see here, you can for example, let's go to user enablement. You see here scenarios where you could use prompts. You have a training kit. I will talk about the Copilot Lab a little bit later. The Copilot Lab is a place where you can share and store prompts very soon. And it's also a site which you can use, if you click, for example, here, ingredients for a good prompt, again, the topic of the day. It's again, what I tried to say at the beginning, give it a goal, a context, a source which it can work, and what do you want from the prompt, your expectations. These are also materials that administrators can use to send out internally to teach people or give some input ideas what a good prompt might look like and how it should look like. So this is the Copilot adoption site. very important site. Please take a moment to look at the material there. And yeah, and I wanted to show you one more thing here. It also comes up then at the end here about new features that we will ship, and a super important, let's say, prompt that I want, prompting possibility that will come up soon is this one here. If you look at this video, we will have this in April. So these are PDFs of CVs, and you can click on in OneDrive there, mark them, or in SharePoint, it's the same, and say, create a table with the following details, and extract those details out of the CVs and create the table. And here you have it then, you saw it quickly at the end of the meeting, in the end of the video. You have extracted all the name, the experience, and the skills out of the CVs. Yeah. So this is a way that, at least in my conversations with customers, with UN customers in the past, everybody really wants to have this, because in the end you can query contracts, speeches of important people, and say, okay, these are the speeches from 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, or 5 years ago. Compare those 5 speeches and tell me the main points where they align and where they differ. So this is I think a very, very important prompt, a way of prompting your data and working with your data. The last thing I'd like to share is also coming up with all customers who are learning how to use or to take advantage of prompting. You have a good prompt that works very well for you. Maybe you use the notebook to create the prompt and you have worked a long time on it. And now you want to share this prompt, or you want to build a prompt library within your organization. And this is also something which is coming in March. They said, so I understand March is already now, but so it should be coming really in a few weeks. And this is a possibility where when you have a prompt, you click on the prompt and say, save this prompt and store it in our organizational prompt library. And in addition, you can send this prompt, for example, to your team or to co-workers and say, hey, I figured this out. This is a great prompt. Take advantage of it. And this is basically the end of, no, it's not yet the end, sorry. An interesting effect that happens sometimes when you work with the Copilot, and I experienced this already a few times as well. The first screenshot says, what's the latest from Alexia Cambon, organized by email, chat, and documents? And the Copilot comes back with something like, I'm sorry, I cannot look at the emails, at your emails. And then you say, try harder. Wait a second. I thought you can find emails. Can you search my email again? And then it comes back with a super useful answer. So this happens. We know that there is serious research going on why this happens, because it's not clear in the moment why it gives you a better answer if you ask it to try harder. But I just wanted to give you this message and say, try hard, and motivate you to tell the Copilot to try harder. This happens, believe me. This is my summary. Yeah, use this role play feature to establish the context. You can also play very interesting conversations with the role play, and tell it to not make stuff up if it doesn't know the real answer. Give clear and concise instructions, use examples, and let's go step by step. And with that, I would like to hand over to Tirza.
Awesome, thank you so much. I think we might have answered all the questions that have come in so far. I'm going to share. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. But if there are any other questions, feel free to write them in the chat. Let me just, oh, it didn't go to the one that I wanted. 1 second. Let me skip ahead. Okay, so now we're going to transition a little bit to talking about how you can use this in your work life. So I used Copilot to come up with a couple scenarios. You all can tell me if they're good scenarios or not, but there's 2 main scenarios that we want to go through, but I think this slide kind of is a good primer for how you can use this depending on which function you reside in. These are kind of the normal commercial organizational functions that people do. The one that's missing is operations in here, which is can benefit highly with this. The other thing that I will mention that I've seen a trend, or we've seen a trend, is everyone wants to use Gen AI, which is awesome, and you can do a ton with it. However, some things are better suited for other technology like automation. So I would encourage you, if you are interested in Gen AI, which it seems like everyone is in this session, to also learn about automation. So if you have the Microsoft automation tool is Power Automate for the low code. And just to try to figure out what can be automated versus what you can use Gen AI for. And then I would say, secondly, based on everything that Martin just went over, I think it's really important to keep in mind the tips and tricks, and we're all learning. I would say I don't consider myself a prompting expert. I try things out every day to see what works better. This try harder, it works pretty well, especially in M365 Copilot. If you say, you know, what I used to say, it's kind of like an intern, like treat Gen AI like an intern. Now I feel like I'm evolving my thinking to say, treat it like a teenager, where you need to ask it to try a little bit harder. You need to give it precise instructions, or it might not understand the implicit tasks that come along with it. So that's how I'm kind of evolving my thinking about how to look at Gen AI and how it can help you. So it's an intern level, but you need to treat it like a kid. that's where I'm at in my journey with the Gen AI. And next time we're on, it might evolve a little bit later. So I think so these are just some functions. You can look at these slides later. The first scenario that we want to go over is really this says for executives, but it can really be for anyone, or if you're supporting an exec, this is good for you. So this scenario, let's just say that we're acting as an executive at DPPA, so peacekeeping, and we want to create a speech internally, and maybe not a speech, maybe a talk internally about the way forward, based on the guidance given by the Secretary General in recent public statements. Now, you could amend this to however you want, but that's the scenario that we're going in for here. So just to give you a quick primer on what you can do. So the first one, we're not going to show this, but find the latest relevant information. And this kind of goes in the step-by-step, outlining what the relevant information is and summarizing it, then drafting the speech, and then creating an invitation, drafting presentation slides, and then create action items based on the questions that came up during the talk. So with that, let's dive in. So this scenario, let me, give me 1 second. I've gotta take my laser pointer off. Okay, so this scenario, right, I'm asking it if you can see executive at the DPPA, I need to write a speech to my organization about the challenges and how we can overcome them. I say, I tell it who I want it to be, my speech writing assistant, and I give how long. I also give the references there. So you can see here, and this is what I failed to mention is this is the protected version. So this is Bing, and this is Copilot in Bing. So even if you don't have M365 Copilot, you can still do some stuff here. I'm in the web version right here. And so you can see it's knocking out a little bit of the speech. But you'll see I'm not super satisfied with this personally. So you'll see me change it, and I want to then just say, give me all the key points from each of the speeches. So then it spits out the key points from each of the speeches. And this is pretty critical. Even yesterday, I was messing around with it for something else. And if it doesn't work on the first task that you give, just to remember to try to break it down to the easiest bits. And it usually works a little bit better when you do that. And so I asked it to do all of that, and then I'm asking it to write the speech itself, and it does a pretty good job of giving you a first draft of what the speech is. So, and what I didn't show, but what I'm using for the next one is I then asked the Copilot to redraft the speech and add more current events from 2024. So not recent events, not from the past month, but it's really important to be specific because it doesn't always understand the relativity. So I said in 2024 to contextualize the main points. So moving forward, what does this look like? Well, before we do that, let's draft the email invitation because that is important. So it does actually a pretty decent job of doing this email invitation to staff members and other stakeholders. And so it pops something out that I would say is probably an 85% product that then you can put over in your Outlook. You can do this in M365 Copilot in Outlook, but because I know not everyone has that, we're showing it here, which is a great alternative. It takes a little bit more work because you have to copy paste. The other thing to keep in mind is the web version does not save your prompts or your responses. So if you like a prompt or a response, you want to copy it somewhere so you don't lose it. I have lost a few of mine along the way. And so I copied the speech over to Microsoft Word. And so this is Microsoft Word Copilot. And I don't really want to do anything except ask it to add something in. So there's like a little surprise me button or inspire me button that you can add some more, some more text based on that. And now let's create the PowerPoint. I'm asking it to create a presentation based on that speech that I just put into Word. And I'm asking for some animation and some pictures. I did also specify the number of slides. So you can see it kind of going through here. It's going through what the outline should be, and then it pops out the speech. Or sorry, the PowerPoint. I will say this still needs work. I would not use this as it sits, but if you need a starting place, it's an okay place to start. I mess around with this one a lot. I thought you could do this trick. This is where I've used this multiple times to say, get me somewhere. But some of the pictures are okay that you can use. I'm going to show you how to use it now in Bing if you don't have M365 Copilot. This is how I do my I didn't do this presentation this way, but if I'm giving like a talk, I'll do my presentations this way most of the time. So it spits out an outline for the presentation with what the bullet points can be for each one. And it gets me like probably 70% of the way there, but it gets me thinking about what the best way to outline it is. And let's let it follow up. So it adhered to the number of slides. M365 PowerPoint Copilot would not adhere to what I wanted, even when I told it multiple times, but PowerPoint and Excel, I think, are the two in M365 Copilot that still have the most to evolve. But going back to Bing, so you can see here, I also asked it to generate images in my prompt for each of the slides. And I'm showing here the first image for the first like intro slide that it gave, which is pretty nice to use. And since it's under the copyright protection, I think it's safe to use these, especially if you're using them internally. But I love using the image creator, even if it's, I think I've told this group this before, but even if it's for creating images for my daughter with her very active imagination. Okay, so with that, let's move on to what most people probably have to do at some point, if not every day, and that's project management. And how do you use it in project management? Or how could you use it in project management? So, this is the scenario here is that we are in the Development Coordination Office, so the DCO. We've been tasked with embarking on a new project around securing food, water, and sanitation systems in coordination with the resident coordinator offices, the RCOs. I think I have those acronyms right, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong there in the chat, please, so I don't mess it up next time. Okay, I have a thumbs up. So here we're going to create a project plan based on a document. This one, I just used a public document. And then we're going to, I'm not going to show this, but let's pretend that we have a meeting about it and then you summarize the meeting. I will say just a caveat, the number one tool that people love, to include myself, in M365 Copilot is the Teams Copilot. So when you get M365 Copilot, make sure you learn how to use that tool well. And happy to help anyone with that because it's a game changer. I use it every day now. And then you brainstorm the risks, like what are the risks that could be in here, and then you send an email about what the plan is, give an update, make agendas for meetings. Really, really helpful in kind of everyday work life. So here we'll summarize the information we need as a basis of the project, and then we'll make an outline of the project. So this is I just used one document here, which is if you're using Bing, it can only do one document, but I'm asking it to summarize all the key points. You can see where I grabbed the information from in the document. I just picked one that looked like it was well supported by member states. So that's where the food, water, sanitation scenario came from. And so you can see here, it is outlining what the main points are from the document. And now I'm asking it to build me a basic project plan. I'm giving it the timeline for the project plan and what all to include in it, to include milestones, what needs to be tracked, etc. And key metrics, right? It's just to give me a baseline for what this project plan could entail and in how to measure if it was successful. And so you can see here, it's giving that pretty well. And one of my favorite things is it does do citations really well in Bing, so you can go double check fairly easily what's happening. And now I'm asking it to ask, I know I keep on saying that everything's my favorite, but this is one of my favorites, to act as my red team, to determine what how I should mitigate and what the risks are. So identifying the risks and then identifying what a possible mitigation strategy is, because I myself can't think of everything, I'm sure, so it just helps me broaden that. It's really good to also do in a team exercise as a starting point or as a build upon type of scenario based on what everyone is talking about. And I've used this in Teams in the Copilot to further brainstorm real time in the meeting. You can also do it in Whiteboard, which is really, can be really beneficial. So this one, let's see. So this one now, I'm asking it to really tell me which RCOs this would be the most appealing to, if there's one that I should start with, and then if there's any mitigation measures that can happen with the ones that might struggle with this more. It doesn't give me an exact answer, but it does give me some criteria that I could think about as I'm going to that. And I see the questions coming in. I'll get to those soon, I promise. So now I want to draft an email similar to what I showed for the executive one, but this is drafting an email to the RCOs about the project plan. I want the tone to be friendly. So out of the box, all of the OpenAI models are generally very professional. If you don't want it to be strictly professional, it's important to tell what tone you want. So if you want it to be funny, if you want it to crack a few jokes, it's important to give that tone so it can act appropriately, which is great. And now I'm going to draft the agenda for the first meeting with the RCOs. Again, it does a pretty good job of getting you probably 80 to 85% of the way there as an agenda. So if you're in a meeting and you even have the transcript, if you have the transcript and you don't have Teams Copilot yet, then you could take the transcript and put it in and say, okay, based on this and the next steps, what would be the agenda for the next meeting? And most people at Microsoft are now using it to send meeting notes after the meeting of what was discussed, which is really helpful. The other thing I will mention that's a helpful tip is when you're doing some of this, especially if you're summarizing, and again, I'll talk about Teams in particular, but this works with most of them, is I usually don't use the first summary that pops out. I will usually query it a little bit more, and I'll ask who said what, to summarize by person or by topic, and to break it up that way. And it does a better job than just summarize this. If you say just summarize this, it can become very generic. So again, like thinking back to what you would want to give an instruction to a middle or a high schooler, you have to be precise in the instructions that you give if you want them to follow the instructions. So just think about it that way. So however you want it organized or what you're most interested in from the conversation, that's kind of what you want to do. And it's not just the conversation, it's even documents that you're asking it to summarize. Okay, so I know I want to leave time for questions, so we're not going to go through the HR scenario. I do just want to show you, Martin showed how to do it with resumes. It's a great game changer. One of my favorite things is to ask it to make questions for interviews and make them scenario based. It does a pretty good job based on the job description to make interview questions, which it does a pretty good job at, and gets you most of the way there. So with that, I'm going to pause for questions. There are more slides in the backup. Some of you have probably gone through them already, but we'll send those out. And we'll go to questions. Johanna, do you want me to just, I see where the question started. Do you want me to just read them and then answer them?
Lisa, thanks first of all, and to you and Martin. Maybe take a moment to catch your breath.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. I cannot access the chat here because I used this other link and from the data conference in Brindisi, and I somehow deleted the other one. I don't know, but I have no access to the chat. Otherwise, I would have tried to answer some of the questions in the meantime, but I cannot.
That makes perfect sense. Martin, don't worry. I actually always think it's nicer to answer questions in the plenary because then everyone can hear the answer and don't have to concentrate on the chat during typing. Tisa, we can do this as you prefer. I can pick some questions, or if you have if you have spotted some that you felt were very relevant, feel free to go to these directly.
I think there was one, how do you say not to make stuff up? Can I say be honest? You can. I think you can also say only use information from this source. That works fairly well. And then you say which source. And then the other trick is to say, if you don't know the answer, then say you don't know. So you give it an instruction on what to do in that case. Again, it's like being very explicit in your instructions. So maybe it's not a high schooler, maybe it's more like a 5-year-old.
It's getting younger.
I love how we're going intern, teenager, high school. Wonderful. So thanks for that. Here's a question from our colleague Ao, and they're wondering, can you upload a document to say this is a best practice example? Come up with something like this.
In Bing chat, I don't think so. I don't think in M365, Martin, have you, I know it's on the roadmap.
It's on the roadmap. It kind of works already. So if you say base your PowerPoint on this reference document and you upload the document before, then it tries to use the same backgrounds and styles in the new PowerPoint presentation. But I think as well, this needs still some work. This does not work in a way that I would say it's satisfactory.
Okay, that's really helpful, and maybe goes back to one of your first do's and don'ts, like break it down into different steps. So don't ask it to do all at once. Think about if you can break it into steps and make it easier for the AI. Freya is wondering if you have any suggestions for double checking outputs.
Yes. I think depending on which Copilot you're using, in Bing, it's pretty easy because it gives you the citation. So then you go to the citation. I do that.
It's the same in Office 365 with emails. If you say, give me all the emails from my boss in the last 7 days, it gives you a pointer to each of them.
Yes. And it's the other thing in email, but like, let's say that you ask it to draft a speech in Microsoft Word, it won't give you the citations in that. That might be coming, but it's not there today. So it does give citations in the M365 Copilot chat. It will give you the citations. Email, it'll give you the citations. Bing, it'll give you the citations, and it's pretty critical to go click on the citation to make sure it's accurate. The fear of hallucinations or the risk of hallucinations is still there. In some of these co-pilots, it's been reduced because they are fine-tuned, so it's better, but it's still not. I wouldn't fire anything off without double checking.
Very good advice. Thank you for that. Staying with the topic of citations, we have Elias from MINUSMA. So that's one of the peacekeeping missions. They're wondering, is it okay to reference Copilot as a source for documentations, presentations, etc.?
I think that's a business decision. I think, yeah, I think it's a business decision, less a technology decision. I say when my pictures are made by Copilot generally, but yeah, it's up to you. If I'm using it to help summarize or help give an outline, academically speaking, maybe you would need to somewhere. I don't know, but I think I usually will go to, well, not usually, I always go to the source document to double check it. So I use it as my like first draft to get me where I think the right answer is, and then I'll go double check it.
And from maybe this is important from a legal standpoint, you can always use what the Copilot spits out. If you use it in good faith, yeah. So if you use the word, you know, from BMW, the Fahrgefühl or something, yeah, then it becomes difficult, because then the negotiation would be, is this now good faith or not? But in general, you're protected if you use the content that comes out of the Copilot. And Microsoft even committed to defending to paying for the lawyers that you need to pay to defend yourself in such a case. That's the copyright commitment, if you want to look it up, or we can provide the link. So you are protected if you use what
from a copyright standpoint.
From a copyright standpoint. The other one is, of course, the personal, you know, social. Yeah.
Of course. So thanks for that. That was a question from Elias, and he's corrected me. He's now with UNMIC, and that is in Kosovo, so no longer MINUSMA. Thanks for the question. We had a couple of questions here because you advertised Teams, and I wasn't quite clear on that feature, Teresa, but someone was very excited. A lot of people actually were very excited about connecting Teams with Copilot. Can you say how you do that?
Yes. So that is part of the M365 Copilot suite. So you need, it's an add-on license that you're, depending on which agency, department, fund you're in, will depend on if you've bought Copilot licenses or not, but that's part of the Copilot license add-on. But it's a wonderful feature. Wonderful
people know
feature.
this feature, or should I share my screen and show it to you for 1 minute?
Team, everyone in the call, thumbs up. Do we want to see another demo of Teams? You all have thumbs up reactions. Okay, there we go,
Okay,
Martin.
good. Okay, then I share my screen again.
Oh, this was enthusiastic.
Yeah, it was.
So Fiona and Tirsa and I, we have prepared the first session that we had already in January, and this is the recording of this preparation meeting. And now we can go to view recap, and in principle, you see here the transcript of the meeting, which you could, of course, read and work through. But this is a lot of work, so we use Copilot to summarize the whole meeting and what we discussed, and this is then much easier to digest than the 7 pages of the transcript. And you have this summary here. You can then even add, you know, ask questions about the meeting that happened back then. For example, you could say something like, what were some action items from the meeting? And the Copilot would look at action items. The other scenario that we always use is you are late to the meeting, you 10 minutes late, and you would then say what happened in the first 10 minutes of the meeting, and it would go back, check the time, and tell you what you have missed because you were late. That's a very
to be clear,
nice.
you could do that real time. Like what Martin is showing is the recording and the Copilot over the recording, but you can do that real time. So even, I know nobody here multitasks, but in the event you have a colleague that multitasks, they can ask what somebody was talking about if you need to catch up real time.
Yeah, so okay, so that was the meeting. Yeah, okay, so action points and all the other stuff. When did Martin speak? When did Tirsa speak? Jamie was in the meeting and he also spoke at the end here. So if you want to see what Jamie was saying, you just jump here and say kick, and then you see what Jamie was talking about in this meeting. So this is really, yeah, all of our favorites, also mine. And with that, I give it back.
Thank you so much. And I think by, again, the reactions we're getting, no one was multitasking during this session. So that's very encouraging. I have one more question in here, and it was linked to exporting directly into MS applications. How's the status of the Copilot inclusion in Power Apps like BI, Automate, and others?
Okay. So Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps, they all have copilots. They are built into the application itself. So if you have access to any of those tools, there is a copilot in there. I went from being able to not build a Power Automate flow to being able to build one in 5 minutes with the Power Automate Copilot. So it helps you with your flow, or it helps you with your workflow of the product. Power Apps, the same. You can put in natural language what you want the Power App to be. Again, specificity is key if you want a good output. And that is, it's phenomenal, like just phenomenal. Power Apps, Power Automate, Copilot's phenomenal. Power BI, still in preview. You can turn it on in your workspace, but it has to be turned on by a workspace admin. And it's still a work in progress. I think they've made a lot of strides. It gets me like 50% of the way there for building a report, but they are making a lot of announcements on that this month. So more to follow specifically on Power BI Copilot. And I'm pretty excited about where it's going. It's just taking a while to get there, but it's going to be pretty phenomenal as well.
Thank you, Tirsa. And I guess for any updates on latest developments, we would go back to this link that you had previously put in the chat. Is that right? There was one, looked like a very helpful link around new things in Copilot.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's for M365 Copilot. They all have there. But there is a link. Let me grab it really quickly. Yeah.
For useful features to just be aware
of.
Great. As you're grabbing that. Yeah. Go on, Martin.
No, I just wanted to say, if you go to adoption.microsoft.com and scroll down to the end, you see what's coming.
I think lots of really useful stuff is coming. Very excited about that. It's going to make our life a lot easier. I was halfway through the presentation thinking maybe I don't turn up to work at all anymore and no one is going to notice. So that would be nice on some days. On that note, I think we are out of questions, which is excellent. And I think we had a rather engaged audience. Everyone, can we give our presenters, Tirsa and Martin, please a hand? Raise your thumbs, clap your hands, let them know if you enjoyed it. I certainly learned a lot again. It was great to have you. And we look forward to continuing this learning journey together with you over the coming weeks and months as you continue and as Microsoft continues and GenAI continues to make our life so much easier. So
Thank
thanks
you. And
so
if
much.
somebody of you is here in Brindisi, let me know. I'm here as well.
All right. Anyone
Thank
wanting to
you,
network,
everyone.
put your details in there, and we'll make sure you're connected. So thanks so much, Kirza. Thanks, Martin. Thanks everyone for joining us, and wishing you a very good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.